You tried to break my neck. If I don't end your career, then I'm not Mad Dog. And with that warning hanging in the air, the stage is set. Welcome back, because what unfolded on Monday Night Raw has sent shockwaves through WWE. Ever since Survivor Series, War Games, one question has refused to die. Who was the masked mystery attacker that blindsided CM Punk and helped Vision? Adam Pearce is determined to uncover the truth. Suddenly, Paul Heyman arrives, Bron Breakker by his side, standing face to face with Pearce. Before Heyman can even speak, Pearce cuts him off. He demands answers. Who sent the masked man? Heyman, calm as ever, fires back. Every time chaos erupts, his name gets dragged into it. But this time, he insists he had nothing to do with it. He claims he doesn't know who the attacker was. Then he shifts the focus. Standing next to him is Bron Breakker, the man who pinned the reigning world heavyweight champion CM Punk. Maybe that's the real story. Heyman then escorts Pearce to the locker room for a private discussion. But elsewhere, the cracks are beginning to show. The first semi-final match of The Last Time is now tournament sees Jey Uso collide with LA Knight. The tension is thick. At one point, Jey delivers a spear, Roman Reigns' signature weapon. But instead of dominance, it feels like something else. Is it a tribute, or a mockery of the move that defined the tribal chief? After driving Knight down, Jey goes for the pin. In a flash, Knight counters with a roll-up and steals the victory. Just like that, LA Knight advances to the finals. The tension in the WWE Universe had been building for weeks. A slow-burning fire that threatened to consume everything in its path. Ever since Survivor Series, War Games, one question dominated every conversation, every forum post, every social media thread, every backstage whisper. Who was the masked attacker? Who had the audacity to interfere in one of the most important matches of the year? Who helped Vision and left CM Punk and Bron Breakker laid out, vulnerable and humiliated in front of millions watching around the world? The mystery had become an obsession, a puzzle that demanded solving, and Monday Night Raw was about to deliver answers that nobody saw coming. The show opened with an intensity that immediately signaled something significant was going to happen. The production team had clearly been instructed to make this episode feel special, different from the typical weekly broadcast. The lighting was more dramatic, the camera angles more cinematic, the overall presentation suggesting that tonight would be a night remembered for years to come. Fans in the arena could feel it too, that electric anticipation that fills the air when you know you're about to witness something important, something that will be talked about and analyzed long after the show ends. Adam Pearce stood in his office, the interim authority figure looking more determined and focused than we had seen him in months. The usually diplomatic and measured general manager had clearly reached his breaking point with the mystery surrounding the masked attacker. His body language conveyed frustration mixed with resolve, the demeanor of someone who had been pressured from every angle to provide answers and was finally ready to deliver them. The camera work was tight, intimate, showing every line of concern on Pearce's face, every subtle expression that suggested the weight of responsibility he carried. The chaos at Survivor Series, War Games, had not just been a momentary disruption. It had fundamentally altered the landscape of WWE, created questions about security, about fairness, about whether matches could be trusted to play out without outside interference. CM Punk had been one of the victims, the returning legend who had fought so hard to reclaim his position at the top of the industry only to be taken out by a coward hiding behind a mask. Bron Breakker, the powerful second-generation superstar with unlimited potential, had also been victimized by the mysterious attacker. Both men deserved answers. The WWE Universe deserved answers. And Adam Pearce seemed determined to finally provide them. Before Pearce could address the situation publicly, before he could even finish gathering his thoughts, the door to his office burst open with the kind of dramatic timing that only happens in professional wrestling. Paul Heyman entered, and standing beside him, towering and intimidating, was Bron Breakker himself. The contrast between the two men was striking. Heyman, the silver-tongued advocate who had spent decades manipulating situations to his advantage, and Breakker, the physical powerhouse who preferred to let his actions speak louder than words. Together, They represented a formidable combination of brain and brawn. Pierce's expression shifted immediately upon seeing them. This wasn't a scheduled meeting, wasn't a planned segment. Heyman had a way of inserting himself into situations whether he was welcome or not, and his presence always complicated matters. The wise man carried himself with that characteristic blend of confidence and calculated manipulation, his body language suggesting he knew more than he was letting on, always 3 steps ahead of everyone else in the room. Before Heyman could launch into one of his trademark verbose explanations or deflections, Adam Pearce cut him off with an authority and directness that surprised even the veteran advocate. Pearce's voice was firm, brooking no nonsense, making it clear that this was not the time for games or manipulations. He demanded answers about the masked attacker at Survivor Series, War Games. His words were pointed and direct, cutting through the usual verbal dance that characterized interactions with Heyman. Who sent the masked man? What did Heyman know? And why should anyone believe that he wasn't somehow involved in orchestrating the chaos? Paul Heyman's response was vintage Wiseman, a masterclass in deflection and misdirection wrapped in a veneer of offended innocence. He spread his arms wide in a gesture of openness, his face a mask of wounded dignity, his voice taking on that tone of someone who has been unjustly accused too many times. Heyman pointed out, with more than a hint of exasperation, that every time something goes wrong in WWE, every time chaos erupts or mysteries need solving, somehow his name gets dragged into it. He's become the convenient scapegoat, the easy target for blame, regardless of whether he actually had any involvement. The performance was compelling, the kind of promo work that has kept Heyman relevant and employed at the highest levels of the business for over 3 decades. He spoke with conviction about how he's tired of being blamed for every disruption, how his reputation unfairly precedes him, how people assume his involvement in nefarious schemes simply because of his history. His words carried weight because they weren't entirely wrong. Heyman has been blamed for many things over the years, some justified, many not. The pattern of assumption had become almost reflexive among WWE management and fans alike. But then Heyman pivoted, as he always does, shifting the conversation away from himself and toward something he considered more important. He gestured to the imposing figure of Bron Breakker standing beside him, drawing Pearce's attention to what Heyman characterized as the real story that everyone seemed to be ignoring. Standing right there in the office was the man who had pinned the reigning world heavyweight champion, CM Punk. That was the story that deserved focus and attention, not wild speculation about masked attackers and conspiracy theories. Heyman's logic was sound from a certain perspective. Bron Breakker had indeed scored a pinfall victory over CM Punk, a feat that should have dominated headlines and discussions. In a normal circumstance, defeating the world heavyweight champion cleanly in the center of the ring would be career-defining, a moment that launches someone into main event status and championship contention. But the circumstances surrounding that match had been anything but normal, and the mystery of the masked attacker had overshadowed what should have been Breakker's crowning achievement. The advocate then made a strategic request, asking Pearce to accompany him to the locker room for a more private discussion away from cameras and prying ears. It was a classic Heyman move, suggesting that the real information, the important details, couldn't be shared in such a public setting. Whether this was genuine or simply another manipulation tactic designed to buy time and control the narrative remained unclear. Pearce hesitated, clearly weighing his options, understanding that following Heyman anywhere could be walking into a trap, but also recognizing that answers might only come through unconventional means. As this backstage drama unfolded, the show continued with its scheduled programming, though everything felt different now, colored by the ongoing mystery and the promise of eventual revelation. The first semifinal match of The Last Time Is Now tournament was set to take place, featuring Jey Uso against LA Knight, 2 of the most popular and over performers on the current roster. Under normal circumstances, this match would have been the highlight of the evening, a showcase for 2 talented wrestlers with strong fan support and compelling characters. The atmosphere in the arena shifted as both men made their entrances. The crowd's energy split between 2 favorites, creating that rare environment where no matter who wins, a significant portion of the audience will be disappointed. Jey Uso had been on an incredible journey over the past year, evolving from a member of the bloodline into a single star with his own identity and connection to the fans. LA Knight had similarly risen through sheer charisma and persistence, forcing his way into prominence through undeniable connection with the audience despite initial resistance from management. The match itself was hard-hitting and competitive, both men giving everything they had, knowing that advancement to the tournament finals represented a significant career opportunity. But there was a moment during the contest that caught everyone's attention, a moment loaded with symbolism and potential meaning that extended beyond just the match at hand. Jey Uso, in the heat of competition, delivered a spear, the devastating move that has been synonymous with Roman Reigns throughout his historic championship reign. The execution of the spear was technically sound, Jey driving his shoulder into LA Knight's midsection with force and precision. But the optics were complicated, loaded with subtext that the WWE Universe immediately picked up on. Was this a tribute to his cousin Roman Reigns, an acknowledgement of the family bond and the techniques learned during their time together? Or was it something else entirely, perhaps even a subtle mockery, a way of claiming the move for himself and distancing his identity from the tribal chief's shadow? The commentators immediately seized on this moment, discussing the possible implications, understanding that nothing happens in WWE without layers of meaning. Roman Reigns had made the spear one of the most protected and feared finishing moves in all of professional wrestling during his extended championship run. The move represented power, dominance, the ability to end matches and careers with one explosive motion. For Jey Uso to use it now in a high-stakes tournament match, while supposedly forging his own path separate from the bloodline, raised fascinating questions about identity, legacy, and whether you can truly escape the influence of the family that shaped you. After connecting with the spear, Jey went for the cover, hooking LA Knight's leg and expecting the referee's 3 count that would secure his place in the tournament finals. The crowd held its breath, counting along with the referee, the tension in the arena building toward what seemed like an inevitable conclusion. But LA Knight, showing the resilience and ring awareness that has made him so successful, managed to counter at the last possible moment. In a flash of movement, Knight reversed the pinning predicament into a roll-up of his own, catching Jey off guard and stealing the victory right out from under him. The shock on Jey Uso's face was evident as the referee's hand came down for the 3 count. He had been so close to advancing, had hit what should have been a match-ending move, but a moment of overconfidence or simple bad luck had cost him the victory. LA Knight rolled out of the ring, his arm raised in victory, his face showing a mixture of relief and celebration as he realized he had just punched his ticket to the tournament finals. The crowd erupted, some celebrating Knight's advancement, while others lamented Jey's elimination. But as compelling as the tournament match was, it existed as almost background noise to the larger mystery still looming over the entire evening. Backstage, Adam Pearce had apparently completed his private discussion with Paul Heyman, though cameras had not been present to capture what was said. Pearce emerged looking thoughtful, perhaps even troubled, suggesting that whatever Heyman had told him had provided some information but likely raised even more questions. The show built toward its climactic revelation systematically, each segment adding another piece to the puzzle, each interview and interaction bringing the WWE Universe closer to the truth about the masked attacker's identity. CM Punk was shown preparing for whatever came next, his face grim and determined, the frustration of having been attacked still evident in his demeanor. Bron Breakker was captured in another backstage area, pacing like a caged animal, his intimidating presence a reminder of the physical threat he represented to anyone who crossed him. Then the announcement came. Adam Pearce had scheduled a segment for later in the evening where he would finally reveal the identity of the masked attacker from Survivor Series, War Games. The build-up was masterful, giving fans time to speculate and theorize while also creating appointment viewing, ensuring that nobody would tune away or lose interest before the big reveal. Social media exploded with predictions and theories, everyone convinced they had figured out the mystery, though most would ultimately prove wrong. As the show progressed toward the scheduled revelation, tension mounted both in the arena and among viewers at home. The production team heightened the drama through careful use of camera angles, dramatic music stings, and strategic placement of the announcement throughout the broadcast. This wasn't just going to be another segment. This was the centerpiece of the entire evening, the moment that would justify the weeks of speculation and investment from the fan base. When the time finally came, Adam Pearce stood in the center of the ring, a video screen lowered behind him, security personnel stationed at every entrance point. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation, the crowd noise a constant rumble of excitement and impatience. Pearce held a microphone, his expression serious, preparing to deliver information that would fundamentally change the WWE landscape and answer questions that had been eating at everyone since Survivor Series. Pearce began by recapping the events at War Games, showing footage from that night of the masked figure interfering, attacking both CM Punk and Bron Breakker with vicious precision. The replay showed the mysterious attacker delivering devastating moves, his identity completely hidden by the mask and nondescript clothing. The footage served to remind everyone of the severity of the attack, the cowardice of hiding behind a disguise, and the need for accountability and justice. Then Adam Pearce made his announcement. After extensive investigation, after reviewing countless hours of security footage, after conducting interviews with everyone who had been backstage that night, after pursuing every possible lead, he had finally identified the masked attacker. The name he was about to reveal would shock the WWE Universe, would explain so much while simultaneously raising even more questions. Pearce paused for dramatic effect, the entire arena holding its collective breath, waiting for the identity to be confirmed. Dean Ambrose. The name exploded from Pearce's lips like a bomb detonating in the center of the arena. Dean Ambrose was the masked attacker. The lunatic fringe had returned to WWE and immediately inserted himself into one of the most important situations on the card. The crowd's reaction was instantaneous and deafening, a mixture of shock, excitement, and disbelief that one of WWE's most unpredictable and dangerous performers had been operating in the shadows all along. The video screen behind Pearce flickered to life, showing enhanced footage from Survivor Series that clearly identified Dean Ambrose beneath the mask. The body language matched, the movement patterns were consistent, and when you knew what to look for, it became obvious that it had been Ambrose all along. But the revelation raised immediate questions. Why had Ambrose returned? Why target CM Punk and Bron Breakker specifically? And most importantly, who was he working with and what was his ultimate goal? Before anyone could fully process the revelation, Dean Ambrose's music hit. But it wasn't his usual entrance theme. It was something darker, more ominous, befitting the sinister nature of his return. The lights in the arena dimmed, and Ambrose emerged from the back not as the beloved fan favorite he had once been, but as something different, something more dangerous and unpredictable than ever before. His appearance had changed during his time away, his presentation more focused and intense, suggesting that whatever had brought him back to WWE, it wasn't to make friends or entertain the masses. Ambrose walked to the ring with purpose, his eyes scanning the crowd but not really seeing them, his focus internal, processing thoughts and motivations that only he could understand. This was classic Dean Ambrose unpredictability, the quality that had made him such a compelling character throughout his career. You never quite knew what he was thinking, never could predict what he might do next, and that uncertainty created a unique kind of tension and excitement. He entered the ring and stood across from Adam Pearce, the interim general manager, looking considerably less confident now that he was face to face with the man who had caused so much chaos and confusion. Ambrose grabbed a microphone but didn't speak immediately, letting the moment breathe, letting the tension build, understanding the power of silence and anticipation. The crowd's noise gradually died down as everyone waited to hear what Ambrose had to say, what explanation he could possibly offer for his actions. When Dean Ambrose finally spoke, his voice carried that distinctive gravelly quality, but there was something else there too, an edge of barely controlled violence, a suggestion that he was holding himself back from doing something truly destructive. He addressed the accusation directly, not denying his identity as the masked attacker but also not showing any remorse or regret for what he had done. In Ambrose's mind, his actions were justified, were necessary, were part of a larger plan that nobody else could see or understand yet. Ambrose talked about his time away from WWE, about watching from the outside as people he considered inferior received opportunities and accolades.